My name is Hindolo Pokawa. I come from a small West African country called Sierra Leone. When most people think about Sierra Leone, the immediate thing that comes to their mind is that Sierra Leone is one of the poorest places on the planet. Or Sierra Leone experienced a massive mudslide in 2017. Or Sierra Leone experienced an Ebola epidemic that killed thousands of people in 2014. Or Sierra Leone experienced a brutal civil war in the 1990s. Or Sierra Leone is home to Bones Island, the last place where human beings touched before they were mercilessly trafficked across the Atlantic to be enslaved in the Americas. Well, today, I'm going to share with you different stories about Sierra Leone. These are stories from my ancestral teachings. I invite you on a journey in my shoes. With each shoe, I'm going to share with you teachings from my ancestral knowledge. What kind of shoe did you wear growing up going to primary school? I wore a black shoe, a white socks, a khaki shirt, and a blue shirt. Every day when I came home from school, my uniform would be so dirty, my shoes would be so dirty, and I have to wash it, clean it up, get it ready for the next day. Why? I only had one pair. It was very customary that every day when I came home, I would join family members to study. And I remember vividly one time coming home, joining my family members to study. And on that day, we were going to study my numbers. I sat down and I started writing my numbers. Number 1, number 2, number 3. All of a sudden, I felt a knock on my head and a slap on my face. I started crying, I started weeping. What was my crime? I had written my number 3 backwards. That was it, nothing else. Well, 40 years later, my daughter came home one day and told me, "Dad, I know why the leaf is green." I said, "Why is the leaf green?" And she said, "The leaf is green because of photosynthesis." I said, "Photosynthesis or photosynthesis?" And she said, "Photosynthesis." I said, "Photosynthesis it is then." She was 3, by the way. That excitement, that joy, that interaction with my daughter changed my life. When you allow children to discover, to experience themselves, they develop the level of confidence to be able to take them through. I did not have that experience. When I share this story with people, and I share this experience with people, most people are quick to judge. They are quick to condemn. But then I remember the African saying, my Mende saying, the face cannot get rid of the mouth just because it stinks. The violence that I experienced, the trauma, the emotion that I experienced growing up must be contextualized within the larger body of violence that we experience on a daily basis. This leads me to my next story. Peace Corps boots. When have you become aware of your country's relationship with other countries across the globe? When I arrived in Minnesota, I went into the store with my wife to buy winter boots. Immediately I walked into the store, I saw a roll full of winter boots on the shelf. But what came to my mind immediately seeing those boots, I referred to them as Peace Corps boots. These were Peace Corps boots. This cannot be anything else but Peace Corps boots. After all, the only time I have gotten to see boots like this was when Peace Corps workers, aid workers, arrived in Sierra Leone to work. Peace Corps represents the United States' use of soft power, which advances its geopolitical interest. That is not at the invitation of locals. And that relationship have often created a more of a dependency relationship rather than an interdependency relationship. The colonial education that was given to Sierra Leone, even though after Sierra Leone gained independence in 1961, did not end. And in fact, 70% of Sierra Leone's national budget today depends on foreign aid. Those conditionalities that were set for those kinds of situations has led to Sierra Leone being one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world. Or Sierra Leone has one of the lowest literacy rates of about 38%. The life expectancy in Sierra Leone for men is about 48 years. For women, 52. And then I remember also the saying, there is no shortcut to the top of the palm tree. There is no dependency. Dependency is not genuine partnership. Foreign initiated-led efforts will never constitute genuine partnership. Efforts that do not honor and build on indigenous values and knowledge will not constitute genuine partnership. Ideas that do not transform both parties will never constitute genuine partnership. Efforts that do not flip the narrative of who is helping whom will never constitute a genuine partnership. This leads me to my third story. Have you ever had to do something that was very impossible? When the rebel war started in Sierra Leone in the 90s, so many people have to escape. When they came through villages, people would have to run away to flee for their lives. It was at that time when indigenous philosophies and indigenous values saved us one more time. When the Peace Corps volunteers, the aid workers had fled, they had gone back to the United States and to Europe. It was the indigenous values, those indigenous spirits, that helped us to be able to survive. It was at that time when the indigenous values that we had helped us to understand when the rebels charged us, we were going through certain roads, we will see the leaves touching each other, which gave us an understanding that the rebels have come through this path. So it made us to understand not to go this way, but to take the other route. It was our indigenous values that help us understand when animals have gone through a certain path, we will see the print on the floor, and that helped us to understand they went this way, we will charge them for food. It was the indigenous values that help us understand when mothers will hear their children crying and they will be coughing, they will rush to the stream so that the sound of the stream will swallow that sound so that the rebels will not hear to be able to hunt them down. It was the indigenous values that help us understand when there were no doctors, no hospitals, no clinics during the Civil War, that we had to make leaves out of medicine in order for us to be able to give people who were sick so that they can live and be able to keep marching on. It was those indigenous values. And so, the African saying, when you fall, look at what helped you and not what tripped you down. Knowledge is not produced by individual geniuses. It is co-created through relationship collectively and intergenerationally. Indigenous people don't need colonial and capitalist knowledge. Colonial and capitalist powers needs indigenous knowledge. This leads me to my last story. My sneaker shoes. I still have the sneaker shoes, but I did not bring it today. And I asked the question, what is it that you will never wash your hands off of? The man who brought me to the United States, when he first met me in Zimbabwe, the place where I escaped to during the Civil War, the only thing he told me was, the United States will be a good place for you. He was white, by the way. And when he picked me up at the airport, he told me, I hope I have not contributed to a brain drain in Africa. Those words resonated with me up to today, and I have been able to leave those words to say to myself, I will never be able to wash my hands off of Sierra Leone, nor will I be able to wash the soil off of the shoes from Sierra Leone. And today, I am responsible for hundreds of children in terms of their schooling. When the war ended, when I went back to Sierra Leone, I saw the destruction. I said to myself, I needed to be able to find a way to flip the story, to write a different narrative. How was I going to do that? So I set up an organization where we are engaged with a philosophy called permaculture. You may want to know what is permaculture. Permaculture is the idea, the philosophy, a paradigm that produces no waste. It is this idea that supports us for us to be able to live in balance with the earth, that we must be able to live and survive with the earth, that the earth is not its own thing acting on its own, that we are in relationship with the environment. And so we have been able to build the first village preschool in Sierra Leone. And at the center of that preschool is permaculture, which invokes indigenous knowledge. It invokes indigenous values. And today, among 250 villagers who have been able to build a school, there are those who became teachers. There are those who became eco-site workers. There are those who became cooks. And there are those who became security guards. Teachers and villagers are co-creating a learning environment from an ancestral approach. And that ancestral approach is being dominated by their own values and their own knowledge. We must be able to remember that knowledge is co-created in and through relationships. It requires unlearning dominance and relearning interdependency. Unlearning dominance and relearning interdependency will heal all of us. It's going to be able to heal the earth. Ubuntu, because you are, I am. Because I am, you are. Your survival depends on me in so much as my survival depends on you. If you do not survive, I do not survive. Thank you.